Hey, this is Sreehari from Mr. Phone, and today we are doing our first detailed performance comparison, and for that we have the lovely Honor Play with us. Honor Play was just released by Huawei and we are pitting it against the very popular, the hotshot Android phone, the OnePlus 6. So without any further ado, let's jump into this video. If you're one of those people who like playing games on your phones, subscribe to our channel. If you don't like playing games on your phones, you could still subscribe to our channel. Since this was our first real performance comparison, just like our camera comparisons, we wanted to be as meticulous as possible. And for that, we have followed a certain set of standard procedures that we'll be following for all our performance comparisons in the future. So here's how we did it. First, we ran 3 benchmarks, namely Antutu 7, Geekbench 4 and 3D Mark's Slingshot, to see how these smartphones performed when tested on different parameters. That was followed by a 20-minute gameplay of PUBG on both these phones, the data for which was recorded by an application called Geekbench, which will give us accurate analytics on FPS, battery drain and heating. Now the OnePlus 6 that we are using for testing has 8 gigs of RAM, the Snapdragon 845 and the Adreno 630 GPU. Now the Honor Play has a Kirin 970 chipset, which is a flagship chipset from HiSilicon, coupled with 4 gigs of RAM on our model and a Mali G72 MP12 GPU. This GPU also comes with a special GPU turbo feature, which is one of the main reasons we are doing this performance comparison, and I'll talk in detail about it while we are doing that performance comparison. So now with all that out of the way, let's go to war. So we began the tests by running some benchmarks, starting with Antutu, and the Honor Play scored a respectable 207,689. But the OnePlus 6 just blew it out of the waters with a score of 285,000, which is just nuts. Now, this was completely expected because the Kirin 970 is more than an year old when it comes to chipsets, while the 845 is the latest and greatest offering from Qualcomm. But there is a very interesting thing going on here. Last year's flagship from Qualcomm, the Snapdragon 835, in the OnePlus 5T scored 186,000, somewhere around 186,000, which means that this is a significantly more powerful processor than last year's flagships. This is also interesting because this wasn't the case last year with the same processor, the Kirin 970, inside phones like the Honor View 10. So the Honor View 10 scored only around 165,000 or 170,000, which means that while it's the same processor, Huawei has worked hard on it to improve the performance, and it certainly shows. Now moving on, we went to Geekbench 4 after Antutu, and we see similar results. The OnePlus 6 earns a single core score of 2421 compared to an 1895 on the Honor Play. This is again expected because the Cryo 385 cores inside the Snapdragon 845 are much more powerful and mature compared to the Cortex A73 cores inside the Kirin 970 chipset. Coming to multi-core, the same difference is reflected. The OnePlus 6 comes in at 8,584 and the Honor Play comes in at 6,591. Both these processors have 8 cores, but still the massively powerful Cryo 385 cores put the 845 in a different league itself. That said, the score of the Honor Play is no slouch. Obviously, when compared to the 845, it's a little bit low, but when compared to last year's flagship and even the best flagship produced like the Note 8, the Samsung S8, the Google Pixel 2 and even the OnePlus 5T, the Honor Play scores higher, which means that while it isn't anywhere close to the 845, it's still better than all flagship released last year, and the price is still half of what they cost now after 1 year of price depreciation. So that's really impressive. Moving on to 3D Mark, where we tested Slingshot used to primarily test out the GPU. The OnePlus 6 uses the Adreno 630 GPU, again a beast compared to the Mali G70 MP12 inside the Honor Play. Well, the results certainly agree. The OnePlus 6 scores a whopping 6,271 and the Honor Play scores a little over half at 3,501. Well, what's all this fuss about GPU turbo then, right? Well, I asked the same question after looking at these results, and the one reason that I could think of was the GPU Turbo might not have been activated for the 3D Mark test. So GPU Turbo has only been optimized for certain games. So for example, it's only been optimized for PUBG and Mobile Legends as of now. They are obviously working to bring the support to more applications and more games. So basically, GPU Turbo is on when you're playing PUBG but off when you're playing Asphalt 9. This probably is the case right here. So GPU Turbo hasn't kicked in when this benchmark was running, hence the much lower score. That right now seems to be the only explanation also for the FPS numbers, because the FPS numbers on the Honor Play topped out at 20 FPS compared to a whopping 47 FPS on the OnePlus 6. Now that we've looked at all three benchmark scores, the one thing that's evident here is that the Kirin 970 inside the Honor Play is no match to the Snapdragon 845 inside the OnePlus 6, with scores too far away to even compare. That said, the Honor Play in each of these tests scored much higher than any of the 2017 aka Snapdragon 835 flagships, including the OnePlus 5T. All these facts, when considered along with the price, make the Honor Play a steal really. Okay, now that we've analyzed the benchmark scores, let's see how they translate to real world usage. Now for this test, we played 20 minutes of PUBG, again, not because we love PUBG, because we do, but mainly because GPU Turbo is optimized only for two games, being PUBG and Mobile Legends. Support for more is coming, and actually Huawei, which is Honor's parent company, is working on bringing more developers on board so that they can get more games into the GPU Turbo umbrella. Now, we also used Geekbench during this gameplay to record all the different stats from FPS values, heating to battery drain, and the results are more surprising than you can imagine. Unfortunately, we couldn't test without GPU Turbo out of the box because there's no way to turn it off, so we can't really compare GPU Turbo off to GPU Turbo on, but here is a comparison of the Honor Play with the OnePlus 6 20 minutes of PUBG gameplay. Both the phones had a median FPS of 40, which was expected from OnePlus from the 3D Mark Slingshot test, but the Honor Play, I was surprised to see that the Honor Play's graph looks exactly similar to the OnePlus 6. Impressive. Both the phones also had an FPS stability of 96 and 97% on the Honor Play and the OnePlus 6 respectively. Again, something the GPU Turbo promises and clearly delivers on. Variability index in the FPS chart is the average of all variations from median FPS, and even that is 1.06 on the OnePlus 6 and 1.28 on the Honor Play. Not really that different. It's in stark contrast to benchmark results where they were playing in different leagues altogether, and here there's very little separating the two. Both also drew very similar amount of power from their lithium-ion packs. However, Honor Play, and listen to this very carefully, is expected to give you 4 hours and 13 minutes of continuous game playback before the battery drains out, which is significantly higher than 3 hours and 23 minutes of continuous playback on the OnePlus 6. This is in part due to the slightly bigger battery in the Honor Play, but there's more to the story. The difference in battery size isn't worth almost an extra hour of playback, which means there's definitely something else at play, and that something else is GPU Turbo for sure. The maximum temperature on the Honor Play touched 42 degrees compared to 39 degrees on the OnePlus 6. And if you were to play PUBG at the same high settings with HDR turned on, you would get similar kind of performance on the OnePlus 6 and the Honor Play. So a considerably better battery performance on the Honor Play and slightly better thermal management on the OnePlus 6. Although, the one thing that we have to note here is that the OnePlus 6 is made out of glass and the Honor Play is completely made out of metal. So metal obviously dissipates heat better. So while the OnePlus 6 doesn't get as hot, the Honor Play cools down quicker. So basically, the three primary things GPU Turbo promised was FPS stability, check, battery drain, check, and heating. I think they've covered most of it, and I'm really happy and very impressed to see how well GPU Turbo has really picked up that processor. Truly, the Honor Play is suited for gaming because GPU Turbo gives a fresh lease of life to the Mali G72 MP12 GPU. This is a part of Kirin 970, and this Mali GPU was originally meant to compete with the Adreno 530 last year, but with intricate tweaks and a little bit of GPU turbo boost, it can now actually compete with the Adreno 630, which is crazy if you think about it. In fact, a benchmark test by the website called notebookcheck.net revealed that this GPU can only achieve a maximum of 32 FPS on PUBG. But We ourselves have noticed that it achieves 40 FPS without breaking a sweat. Therefore, GPU Turbo not only improves battery efficiency, but it can also improve the FPS, which is very cool. Also, a little thing that I noticed is while the CPU usage for the OnePlus 6 was only around 11.56%, the Honor Play used around 17.87, which is almost 18%, which means that the Mali GPU is somehow taking the help of the processor, probably for GPU Turbo in some way, or basically maybe that is GPU Turbo, to perform at par with the Adreno 630. Also probably one of the reasons for the higher temperatures. Now coming to RAM performance, the one thing I have to tell you is that the OnePlus 6 we had 8 gigs of RAM, and the Honor Play we have for the testing is a 4GB RAM model. Since they both use low power DDR4X RAM, with the OnePlus 6 RAM clocked a little higher, there's not much difference in performance, which goes to show that having more or even double the RAM in this case doesn't really affect the gaming performance as such. So now we are done with our testing and our first gaming comparison, and all I can say is that the Honor Play is very impressive, and it compares very well with the OnePlus 6 as you saw in its tests, and I am stoked. Now the OnePlus 6 that we used for this testing was an 8GB RAM model with 128GB storage. It costs 40,000 rupees, and the Honor Play that we used was a 4GB RAM model. And I never in my wildest dreams thought that I'd say this about the OnePlus 6, but the Honor Play costs almost half of what the OnePlus 6 costs. The OnePlus 6 is a true flagship, no question about that, but the Honor Play is significantly more value for money if you play a lot of games. Is the Honor Play a good phone to buy otherwise? Well, for that answer, you'll have to wait for our full review that's coming soon. So stay subscribed, hit the bell icon so that you know as soon as that video drops. Also, very interesting videos coming up. The Mi A2 launch is on 8. So please stay subscribed and hit that bell icon if you don't want to miss any of those videos. So I guess with that, we come to an end of our first detailed performance comparison. Please let me know what you thought of this in the comment section below. Also, if you have any feedback or you think that we missed out on any performance area or gaming area to test out, please let us know that in the comment section. We'll be more than happy to take that feedback and make our performance reviews even better for the future videos to come. I'll also be doing a full review of the Honor Play, so please stay subscribed to our channel and also hit the bell icon so that you know as soon as that video drops. I'm very sure that there'll be a lot of discussion about this performance comparison on our Facebook and especially on our WhatsApp group. So if you want to join that conversation, there is a link in the description. Join our WhatsApp group. I am sure that you'll be more than happy to be there. So I guess that's it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. This is Sreehari from Mr. Phone, and I'll catch you in the next one.